Hold on, I could probably turn right back on.
I will not.
No, because we stopped recording and we started talking, and I just brought up, we were talking about what our graphics should be on Instagram, and I said, oh, we should use the photos that Lewis took of Charles and Carlos, and then Nicole started to freak out, and I was like, oh, no, we need to freak out.
Lewis was being like everyone's Instagram baddie mommy. Like, he was like, okay, you're gonna stand next to like this very colorful archway and don't stand, like he was like having an entire like creative photo shoot, and the
photos weren't good.
No, and I've been this, every girl or friend, take turns, you go through all the spots, and like Lewis is that guy, and it's kind of, like I thought they were gonna be like the sickest photos. Lewis doesn't take his own photos, of course. You're not gonna be good. But
I love that he like saw Charles and Carlos like leaning on the letters and was like, oh, we need the shot. And you're right, like you describing it as like being everyone's like Instagram mom is like incredible.
And everyone else is in like their team kits and stuff. He's in like this pink furry bucket hat and like a Dior sweater vest. Like, it is so...
Lewis's commitment, like obviously Lewis comes in this like fully curated fit, and then he just replaces the shirt for either a black or white oversized Mercedes tee. And sometimes, but he will leave on the accessories. So like the fact that he left on the fuzzy bucket hat.
Love
incredible.
That hat. Yep, incredible.
Happy Lewis Hamilton week number 2.
Whee! Wow, feels so good. This is so fun. This is so joyous.
Brazilian citizen Lewis Hamilton is our home driver this weekend. So let's all collectively take a moment and put out all the positive vibes that he has a great home race weekend. Positive vibes, and we'll keep those positive vibes up the entire episode today. But before we move on to previewing the Brazilian Grand Prix, first we have to talk about all the big stories from the Mexico GP weekend, which really is that we just need to give space for Nicole to freak out about Daniel Ricciardo's banner weekend, because, like, who knows what this means for Sergio Perez, but we need to take every opportunity for Nicole to be happy about Daniel Ricciardo, because last season was so sad, so depressing. Also, the rumor mill was swirling all this week in the F1 space. Disclaimer, you should know this more than any other week. It is currently Tuesday. If there is big news tomorrow on Wednesday, we will of course record an add-on and pop it in here. If it comes out on Thursday, the same day as the episode, obviously we can't talk about it. So just, give us some leniency this week. But we talk about, will Audi actually pull out of F1 before they really join? Why are F1 journalists tweeting such cryptic things? Are we on the verge of something big? Some big driver musical chairs? Or are they all just messing with us because it's fun to do so? It was announced today that Mike Elliott is out at Mercedes. He's stepping down from the chief technology officer role just months after moving there from the technical director role. We discussed what effect this could have on Mercedes' 2024 competitive hopes. As always, our podiums of the race weekend will be scattered throughout the episode, and we will share the results of our race weekend polls. Nicole has a sprint gossip grid from the Mexico GP week, and we discuss the marketing of Lewis's new non-alcoholic tequila. Well, I think technically you would say agave drink, but that's tequila. We get into all of this. And if that isn't enough to jam into this episode, we preview and predict Lewis Hamilton week 2. Nicole makes a push to catch up in our predictions race and hope to not end up in an ice bath in 3 race weekends. Lastly, as always, we end the show with the Yellow Sector Notes, one story you should know from every team on the grid. That wraps up the Formation Lab for this crazy jam-packed episode 41 of Grid Walk, a weekly Formula One podcast that believes there are fascinating stories to discuss across the entire F1 grid. Since this is such a packed episode, I do want to call attention to the fact that there's always time codes in the description of the episode, no matter where you're listening or watching. So use them to navigate throughout the episode to the parts that interest you, or of course just go along for the ride with us through all the crazy news this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Leave us a comment. Let us know what rumors you think are true and which ones are just noise. If you're listening on an audio platform, please hit the follow button and turn on auto downloads. Honestly, downloading the episode does more for the podcast than any other action you can take. So even if you're watching us on YouTube, hey, why don't you go subscribe on an audio platform, download it, delete it, come back, just watch on YouTube. All of these things really help. Also, leave us a review because we want to know what you think about the show. All of these things greatly help support Gridlock.
Nicole and Briana are lined up on the grid. It's lights out, and away we go. This week's Gridlock.
I love the Mexico GP. I always enjoy watching it. The fans are fun. The teams have a lot of fun. And I also just really enjoy the circuit. And there's always just like some extra special moments. But particularly this weekend, there were plenty of special sparkle moments at the Mexico GP. And there were several moments this weekend that just made me go, oh my gosh. So these are my podium of moments in the Mexico GP that had my jaw on the floor. So an honorary mention, because we always got to sometimes throw in things that we just really want to talk about as an honorary mention. Max's arrival to the podium. I love that the Mexico Grand Prix does this, but watching Max Verstappen with a sombrero sitting on the Red Bull lifting up from the ground was the most unbelievably extra thing. And I also just love every year with this race, old videos come back of drivers levitating from the ground, and it's so dramatic, and I absolutely am obsessed with it. So every time I see it, I just am like, how are other races not doing this, please?
I am pro car levitation. I am anti the sombrero.
Yeah, it wasn't really for the sombrero. I'm really hyped about the levitating of the floor.
Right.
Sombrero felt like really an unnecessary piece of it all, given Max Verstappen's, I don't know, like it's
F1 just traveling around the world doing
trying
gross
to do
generalizations and stereotypes of
Yeah.
everywhere they visit.
Yeah, so
No.
but again, the floor.
But
Podium with
the
dramatics.
car. I think the car should always be a part of the celebration. I think that is definitely something every other race should learn from. But then maybe it would make this one less special. But like, no, car should be a part of it. It's super hype. I can't believe that's not on your podium, though. That's just an honorable mention.
Yes, I know. This was a really tough podium altogether. Like all of these had me absolutely screaming all weekend. And this one, I even debated moving up higher on my podium. My P3, Lewis's overtake on Charles. I know. I'm shocked it's not higher, but given other circumstances of the weekend that we will be getting into, it just naturally is not for me. But it was that overtake, which I have then watched 1,000 times before. You know those moments when you just like hear like it's hammer time, like screaming in your ears? Like it was one of those beautiful moments. I could imagine all of the like goose duck memes, like in, 3 rounds Lewis Hamilton. It's those moments that just make you feel on fire as an F1 fan, and like there's the gap and he took it. So I was getting really hyped, and it was just like he's doing it, and then P2 finish. Felt really good as a Lewis fan this weekend. All right, now we're getting into where everything gets really saucy. My P2, moments that had my jaw on the floor. Danny Rick qualifying P4? Wow, this bit's really awkward without sounders.
I think we're gonna add it in post.
Yeah. So not only you don't just I can just do it live. You don't want to just do it live? Ready? Watch. We can just start over. Danny Rick qualifying P4, and Checo qualifying P5. So
again, how is this not your P1? I'm so confused.
Well, because there may be one that's unbelievably obvious now as my P1. I couldn't believe this. I was like barely able to text Briana while watching qualifying. I just kept saying fever dream. Like none of it was real. I was so worried that I was going to say something and jinx it and he was going to just like break his other hand. I don't know what was happening. And look, I love Danny Ricciardo. All of my excitement is nothing against Checo. Like it is a really difficult situation, and I am just rooting for the success of Danny Rick, which unfortunately some may, who knows, be at the cost of Checo. But I just need to make that clear. I don't dislike Checo. It's been very rough. But wow, it was so unbelievable to see Danny Rick have the weekend that he did after, stuff. But whatever. We'll get into all that later. And my number one jaw-dropping moment of the Mexico GP, Checo's DNF. I don't remember what the P1 sound is, so I can't do it. I still can't believe that it happened. How soon it happened, how dramatic it happened. Seeing Checo in that car was absolutely heartbreaking after the fact. It was, really pushing to the limit. You could tell how much this race meant to him in the moment, and like all the stakes of it, like just really felt the build up there. Ooh, and the fan, like there was just adorable Checo fans like sobbing in the stands, and like I've been that person where it's just absolutely so heartbreaking, and there was so much build up for this, and to like that's what this came down to. It was just like very heartbreaking to watch.
So to place everyone listening in my living room for this. So the Eagles game is getting wrapped up. So I'm watching that and the sound is on the Eagles game. But I have the start on, like my full multi-viewer setup still. And it just so happened that the start coincided with like a commercial break on the Eagles game. So I looked up and I was like, ooh, I get to watch the start. This is so great. This is so exciting. And I'm watching it and I screamed when I saw the Red Bull car go flying. And for like a second, I didn't realize like which car was flying because on the starts, I really watched Lewis Hamilton's onboard. And so I got like distracted and pulled away. And everyone in my family was like, are you okay? Are you dying? What is going on? And I was like, a Red Bull car went flying. And they were all like, okay, Briana, like, great. Is everyone okay? I was like, I think so. And I don't know, the car went flying. It was so dramatic. I'm glad that he's just not hurt and is safe. But that aside, Checo this weekend, like, fully embodied the, like, stupid F1 cliche that's, like, you can't win a race in turn one, but you can definitely lose a race in turn one. And I just have never seen a better example of that being evident in a thing.
Yeah, in the cool-down room when Max, Lewis, and Charles were rewatching, and Lewis is like, he pulled a me in Qatar. Like, it was like, he said it.
We love a self-aware king.
Yeah, I was like, wow, so unbelievably self-aware. But, and even post-race interviews, all of it was just, ouch. So...
Yeah, you're right. That's a pretty obvious P1.
Yeah, but you know what? Really, all of these you could... That one is the P1, the rest you could all just throw around and put there. But that Checo DNF is still just...
Well, now that we've talked about Checo DNF sadness, do you want to go scream about Daniel Ricciardo for a solid 3 minutes? Okay, let's go do that. Okay, his lap in Q2, he did get the big toe from Yuki. So a lot of people are like, oh, the pace is just because he got a toe, and it's not, like, real pace. And, like, yeah, it's an AlphaTauri. It's not, like, quote-unquote real pace. Like, Checo should be up there with Max. But his Q3 lap, Yuki wasn't there, so it wasn't a toe. And he was actually able to do that lap.
Q4, P4, whatever. I can't even speak. What letters are we supposed to be talking about? This is not a real weekend. This was, no, I mean, it was so unbelievably real. I felt so alive. This is the most alive I've felt in such a very long time as a Daniel Ricciardo fan. I feel revived. I feel like my soul has been, like, saved after, like, being heartbroken at Coda last year. So many things. This was a fever dream the entire weekend. I don't really know what happened, that it just kind of makes me really worried that I'm going to be buying Red Bull merch next year.
I can't believe, this is a sidebar that I can't believe I didn't put on the outline to talk about this week. I can't believe Red Bull decided to drop Daniel Ricciardo Red Bull merch, not AlphaTauri merch, Red Bull merch, specifically the hat, in Mexico GP week. Like, right before Mexico GP week, everyone was like, oh my god, there's a Daniel Ricciardo Red Bull hat on the store. Like, this week of all weeks, you would think maybe Coda week, but no, Mexico GP week is when Daniel Ricciardo fans who've been asking for Red Bull merch since he was announced as a reserve driver got it Mexico GP weekend? Oh my gosh!
Me. Literally, if you've been a longtime Gridwalk listener, aka you've been here since Australia, we had a little bit to see like how much of the Daniel Ricciardo content would push me to like purchase merchandise, Red Bull merchandise. And because there hasn't been official Red Bull merchandise, and I have always said that if there was a hat with the 3, I would buy, and now it's there. And if it wasn't for 1989 Taylor's version getting released over the weekend and me buying a cardigan, I probably would have had to spend my money elsewhere. So...
Oh, everyone listening is going to be so jealous that you got the blue cardigan.
Oh, I did, and it already shipped, and everyone... I don't know how that's even possible, so catch me wearing that in an upcoming episode.
There's a really funny... actually, I think it's linked as a guide in on our Instagram of all the videos we did about like, will Nicole buy Red Bull merch? And it's just a fun series of videos if you want to watch. I think it's like 15 minutes in total with all the videos together. Like, I'd highly recommend it. And in the end, she obviously didn't buy official Red Bull merch because there was none to buy.
Yeah.
But Mexico GP week is when you should, like, I don't.
Yeah. It's so shady. It's so Red Bull coded. It's so everything that how they make every single decision and move. The rest of the season will be unbelievably interesting moving forward. Now it all just feels like really inevitable. I mean, Mexico is where all that went. Like, it just really feels like signed, sealed, delivered, and we've been joking around of like, is this the end? But like,
we've been talking for weeks. I feel like every race we come on here, we're like, did that seal the deal? At this point, like, who will be in that second Red Bull seat is just well, we all know it's not Sergio Perez. Like, if we actually start preseason testing next year and it's Checo, I will be floored, because we are all just so, like, everyone on the internet, even Checo fans are like, yeah, it's not going to be Checo. Like, I don't.
Checo, it's going to be Dan. I'm putting on every Danny Rick related hat that is currently in my vicinity right now.
This is a look. If you're listening on audio and not watching on YouTube, I recommend at least popping over and clicking to the time code to see the look that Nicole is currently sporting.
Yeah, no, it really feels like I should do a shoey, but I also have already done one of those on the podcast already, so I feel like you can't do two of those within a calendar year on the podcast.
I feel like you need to save that for the announcement, not like we think an announcement's coming, but like an actual announcement. And I stand by. I'm rooting against this heavily. So,
right. But think about how much fun and chaotic this podcast will be.
But I can't reconcile with you being a Red Bull fan. I don't know how I'm going to survive next season.
I'm a Danny Rick fan. Who just happened. But you see, look, we're okay. Look, all of my Red Bull items will also have some piece of Lewis Hamilton attached so that everyone knows what I'm about. Yeah, this is a really weird, wild time. If you had said any of this to Nicole back in February, she would have just been like, that's a joke. That's Nick DeVries has won a race. I didn't really think that, but like that, I would have believed that before I would have believed what has occurred in Mexico.
The Nicole Katz crying on the grid in Austin, staring at the Daniel Ricciardo McLaren garage, would be very confused right now, because at that point he hadn't even been announced as a Red Bull reserve driver yet, and you were still holding out hope that he was going to be the Mercedes reserve driver. It was a whole...
Yeah, totally.
That was a different universe.
Yeah, that was a different universe. No, you know, the one me that would 1000% believe that this was happening is the me that was watching last year's Mexico GP, and Danny Ricciardo just like had the race of his like year last year, and it was like not even an incredible, unbelievable finish, but just that he had enough gap to stay. You know, there was.
It was very exciting. It was like him on the hards at the end of the race, like weaving through everything.
There was penalties. He had to create a gap. It's like that race is only exciting to me last year, and everyone else like it's so boring. I was like, it was so exciting. I was rooting for P8 the whole time.
Daniel Ricciardo in the Mexico GP. Who knew?
Oh, don't tell Checo.
All right, my podium this week is my top quotes of the weekend. Yes, Nicole normally brings the top quotes, but I called dibs this week because I was really excited to talk about some of these. I really appreciated this weekend how confident Ferrari was all weekend. So my honorable mention is the Leclerc radio. We believe that in about 5 laps, hard tires will be faster than the mediums. I liked this side of Ferrari. Like, I liked Ferrari not wavering on decisions and being confident, so I'm in favor of this. But it's just one of those, this is why it's not fully on the podium, but it's worth talking about. Because in hindsight, it's a little funny to see their just pure confidence in what's going to happen. All right, P3, post-race, Lewis, fantastic. Now we just need to give you the car that can win. That driving was perfection. This radio just made me so happy. Like, and if you didn't watch the onboard, you probably missed Lewis crossed the finish line and just was sitting there pumping his fist and was so excited and happy about the performance that day, and he had so much fun. And it was just a reminder that, like, I love seeing the emotion of these drivers, good or bad. Like, I like when Max gets angry. I like when drivers do something great in a race and are excited to cross the finish line and to show that excitement. And seeing Lewis that excited and then hearing about his driving perfection, because that is what it was, deserves a P3. All right. I went back and forth on these, on what should be P1 and P2, so you can let me know, both you, Nicole, and anyone listening, if I ordered them wrong. But my P2 was the McLaren radio. We know what Russell is like. He's all or nothing. Beep, beep.
I'm now realizing there's such a good chance that all of these sounds are going to make it into the episode.
Oh, I'm definitely leaving it in.
It.
Yeah.
So I apologize to everyone for these obnoxious noises, but our sounder's just not working this week, so we're DIYing, you know? This Barbie's job is sounders.
The thing is I told Nicole, hey, I'm just going to add them in post. Our soundboard's not working. But she continues to make the sound as if I'm not going to leave it in, because I'm most definitely going to leave her making these, like, horn sounds in. I just love that George Russell has this reputation now, and everyone knows, like, even other teams are just like, yeah, that's George Russell. Now, I will say that he's more all or nothing with Lewis Hamilton, but the fact that everyone else is just like, be careful. Like, there's two drivers on the grid right now who have a wrecking ball reputation, and one is Sergio Perez, and the other is George Russell. So, at least when Logan Sargent crashes out, he's normally not taking people with him.
Well, he's too far behind. There's no one there.
Oh, poor guy. All right, P1, Esteban Ocon. You can say to Haas that I'm going to go for it, so they better be ready. And what made this quote so great isn't necessarily that quote, even though it is great, that Ocon's like, let Nico Hülkenberg know that I'm going to do an overtake. Like, it's just so, like, I'll think of a good connection. But that Nico Hülkenberg then responded, you must really like my rear end. What took you so long, Esteban Ocon, on his Instagram story. Which was just, like, perfect F1 driver banter. I loved every second of it.
If that wasn't your P1, I was going to describe this entire scenario as my P1 quote of the weekend. So I would have done this podium just for that quote, so I'm so glad you did it, because I would have done the same thing.
I did this podium just for this quote.
So we're clear. As soon as I saw that on Instagram, I was like, this needs to be discussed.
All right, if you've been listening to this and you're like, I just want to hear them talk about all the rumors, almost right after this, because first we have to talk about the actual news, and then I feel like we're free to talk about the circus chaos of all the rumor mill news. And that is that Mike Elliott put in his notice on Monday this week, and it was announced Tuesday this week that he will be leaving Mercedes as of today. So a reminder to everyone, the saga of this, Mike Elliott took over as technical director for this start of this regulation set. So at the start for the 2022 car, essentially, he took over as technical director. Then midway or a third of the way through this season, Mike Elliott stepped down as technical director of Mercedes. He stepped down as technical director, but technically weirdly got a promotion into chief technology officer. And the then chief technology officer, James Allison, who was the previous Mercedes technical director, took the technical directorship back. And it was pitched as this whole, like, you know, like, hey, we're all happy. Like, Mike would rather do this, and James would rather do that, and James is going to be technical director, and it's all copacetic, and it's all great. And then, essentially, Mike Elliott is now leaving Mercedes. Everything seems copacetic. Like, it doesn't seem like this was all like we're going to give him chief technology officer and then fire him. Like, this doesn't seem to be coming from Mercedes' side, per se. But it is an interesting... it's been a dramatic year for Mike Elliott in Mercedes. I do think it's worth pointing out that he's been with the team for well over 10 years through all the successful years. So if you are stomping on Mike Elliott's grave, that is completely unfair. I think there's so many reasons why Mercedes didn't come out of the gates at the start of 2022 in this regulation set super successful, and I think putting that all on one person is completely unfair. And if we're going to put it all on one person, maybe put it on the person in charge, being Toto Wolff. But Nicole, what were your thoughts when you saw this announcement? And what are your thoughts on how this affects Mercedes going into 2024?
So anytime I see like an announcement about F1 teams administrations like shifting, I always just feel like it's a two-parter. Like I just feel like someone announces someone is leaving, and then it's just like a matter of time until we get like a they're going somewhere else. Like we've been, you know, not that we're in the rumor mill right now, but we were talking about like, is Mattia, you know, left Ferrari, and like maybe is there something at Alpine, or just like all of the back and forth switcheroo that we saw with Mercedes and Williams. There's like been a lot of like switching back and forth. So I just feel like normally when someone leaves somewhere, they're taking their skills and definitely not any of their knowledge of other teams to other places. So, like, I always just feel when it's, like, a scenario where it doesn't seem like, you know, there was a firing or something like that. Just, I feel like we're going to be seeing Mike Elliott somewhere else on the grid.
Yeah. It was said in all the press releases that he hasn't decided where he's going, but he just is leaving Mercedes. I agree. It does kind of feel like half an announcement. Something that we should earmark to talk about in the off-season is gardening leave in F1 and why we are seeing less, like, actually people moving teams is a good thing if you want to see a competitive series. Like, we want to see Red Bull if Red Bull's doing really well, we want to see as many people leaving Red Bull and going to other teams as possible and sharing that knowledge and the length of this. So I'm not going to get on this whole thing today. So earmark, everyone, if you want to hear that, hear about gardening leave and how it's hurting parity in F1, let us know, so then we'll definitely make that episode. I think what's interesting about this is I think Mike Elliott gets so much public scrutiny for essentially creating the two worst cars that Mercedes has put into F1 since the Michael Schumacher era, not the Mick, the Michael Schumacher era. And he has been very public about how that has weighed on him and how he didn't think he was right for the technical director role. And maybe he thought moving to this other role, he would be able to take a step back and feel better about things. And I don't like to pontificate about other people's mental states. So it's not that. But I think that for now, we could believe Mike Elliott when he says he doesn't know what he wants to do next. And I think he's very smart and a very good engineer, and I hope he lands somewhere interesting that makes him happy.
Yeah, for sure. And then at least, like, for Mercedes in 2024, I personally, like, going back to your point of you can't blame every single issue on just one person, so, like, him leaving doesn't drastically affect my view right now of 2024
Same.
like too much differently, because it's just like, not that I don't think he's had like a major impact in some way, shape, or form, but I don't think one person departing is going to drastically affect, at least right now, especially like, you know, they've been talking about 2024 for a long time. I still feel kind of the same. I feel as nervous and as hopeful and excited for 2024 that I did a week ago. I hope it's black again, and I hope it's fast.
Yeah, this doesn't tip my scales either. For next year, if we were having a conversation about how does this make you feel about the 5 to 10 year prospects of the Mercedes team, I might be like, oh, I mean, like, it always hurts to lose smart people. So, like, long term like that. But I think sometimes we all collectively in our conversations of things, because even though the championships are over, we're all still mentally very much in the 2023 season, that we forget that the teams are probably on month 4 to 6, depending on how early they started, of developing the 2024 cars. Mm-hmm. This was handed over to James Allison to technical direct a while ago. And so, like, yeah, if the Mercedes car is really good or really bad next year, and likely it will be somewhere in between, but just to take the extremes, I don't think Mike Elliott staying or leaving in the team was going to directly affect next year, per se. So I agree with you. And I just caution everyone, please be kind on social media. I know that that's hard and a wild thing for me to say, But it doesn't hurt to be kind. He is a human being. No matter how you have felt, or no matter how frustrated we all collectively have been about the Mercedes performance over the last nearly 2 years now, pushing your anger on this one person isn't going to help that. So please, 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 just, we've said this before, but if you need a place to dump emotions and feelings, like, Gridwalk's DMs are open. Send us a message and vent to us, and we're totally there. And if that's going to stop you from sending a mean tweet, please do that. Vent to us. We're here. We're the most emotional sports fans you'll probably find. So we get it.
This is all just because silly season was rather quiet and not as silly as it could have sillied. So now everyone's just rumor happy and throwing every possible idea around.
I just think F1 said, you want to confine us to a season, therefore we're going to be silly always.
We are silly season.
So, if you are not as chronically online as the two of us, we are here to bring you up to date. There is a fantastic Spanish F1 tech journalist, primarily Albert
Cabreja? That would be mine.
You know what? That actually sounded really, really good. Yeah. Since he's Spanish, he primarily, if he's gonna get a scoop on something, it's normally Fernando, Carlos, or Ferrari. He's pretty connected in the Ferrari organization. He's the guy who does all the F1 tech demos, if you just need a connection. But so he's really ingrained in the paddock. And he tweeted in Spanish on Sunday, "I don't want to believe the rumor that they just told me now in the paddock, period. No, period." And then, he was even in the comments when people are someone said, at least put some emojis to give us clues. And then he did the emoji with the zipped mouth. Essentially, Albert wanted to start some shit. Then Will Buxton quote tweeted it with just a gif of a mascot-y character running away from an explosion. Then the Monday morning, he tweeted, "Good morning. I'm just going to," again in Spanish, so this is an auto translation. "I'm just going to say one thing about the rumor I told you yesterday," which, by the way, you didn't tell us the rumor. You just told us the one existed. It gave us zero information. "From the tone of the text, it is understood that I would not like it to happen. From here, you can speculate as much as you/we want." So he's basically saying, yeah, you were right. I don't want this rumor to be true. Speculate away. "And I hope it remains a rumor and not news. End of thread. Period."
This is literally just dropping something scary and running away. He's dropping a stink bomb and be like, "I didn't do it. Oh my goodness. I feel like the second tweet made it almost made it worse.
Right. This is essentially felt to me like a 5-year-old kid running up to you and being like, "I know something you don't know, na 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 na," and it's bad.
And the thing that I told you that I know, guess what? It's so bad that I'm so upset about it, and everyone's gonna also be upset about it.
Right.
But I can't tell you what it is yet.
Right. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna ruin the sources.
It's so bad.
Right. And then Will Buxton butting his nose in. So this basically caused F1 Twitter to just light in flames. And there's now so many people saying this is what it is, that is what it is, and people are saying, oh, because it's Albert, it's probably this, or because of things we already know, it's probably that. So I pulled a list things that I read that people seem very confident in. No, the Nico Rosberg is returning rumor is not on this list, and I just want to say whoever started that rumor, salute to you, because that is peak chronically online humor, and it's which is my favorite kind of thing, where it's when you're chronically online, you get that that's a joke, but it makes people who are not online enough really mad. So shout out to you, whoever you are. I loved that rumor. So not that. Nicole and I are going to rate these on feasibility. Do we think this is actually what Albert is teasing? And then so this is not our rating on whether we want this to happen. It's just do we think this is a feasible thing? So, starting with rumor number 1 I read, and this is in no particular order, that the Abu Dhabi race is going to be canceled. and Vegas is going to be the final race of the season. 1, this is very feasible. 5, not feasible. Where are you landing on the spectrum for this rumor?
I'm falling like right in the middle on this. I think it's a little too soon to make this call, given like the current state of everything going on in the world. If anyone hasn't heard like the rumors about Abu Dhabi getting canceled, would be because of like the unrest in the Middle East and safety and things like that. Which also has been a topic of conversation at F1 races like before. So I right now I'm in the place of, I don't think there's an announcement coming right now about this. I wouldn't be surprised later. So I feel pretty neutral. I don't necessarily, it doesn't seem impossible to me right now.
I put this at a 5. I think this is unbelievably not feasible. There's no way this is happening. Abu Dhabi spends so much money to have this race every year.
I don't want Vegas to be the last race on the calendar.
I really like the Abu Dhabi circuit.
Yeah, I don't want to end with whatever the pop and circumstance. Maybe I'll love it. Maybe it'll be like the Mexico GP and it'll be fun. But I don't want this year to end on Vegas.
It also, like, I don't think it would end on Vegas because there's a week break between Vegas and Abu Dhabi. So I think we would have like a week break and then a random cancellation, and it would like, we would retroactively know that Vegas is the last race. So if this is going to happen, I hope they announce it before we actually get the Vegas race so we know it's the final race of the season. Rumor: Audi is pulling out of F1 before it has even really started. And to be fair to Audi, they have spent millions and millions of dollars. They already own 25% of Sauber. They've spent $100 million in engine development this year already for the 2026 season. So they've done things, but we haven't seen them on track. Nicole, from 1 very feasible to 5 not feasible at all, where do you put Audi is pulling out of F1?
5, too much money already. I don't think they have been like the point of direction of this is how this team's gonna go, and so much talk about like they're joining in 2026 and the amount of money that has been thrown at this, there's no way they're backing out right now. That would be so unbelievably stupid.
It would be stupid, which actually makes me think it's more feasible. So before I give you my number, I will say that this is coming up in light of Audi has a new CEO and Volkswagen has a new CEO, I believe it is, or a new board chair. I'm panicking and forgetting which one. Basically, there's new leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the leadership that signed the F1 deal and decided to make this commitment is no longer with Audi and Volkswagen. Therefore, like, I could see them making, like, coming in and being like, that's an expensive decision I wouldn't have made. And like maybe deciding like sunk cost, cutting our losses. I'm going to put this at a 3 because if there's one thing Volkswagen does in F1, it's make bad decisions and not actually join. So if this was announced, I'd be like, well, that sucks and is also not that surprising. But I would also be like, I can't believe they've spent probably close to $300 million at minimum. We designed an entire engine regulation and implemented an engine cost cap around what Audi wanted for them to just pull out. That would be fitting. That would 100% be super fitting. Rumor: Lawrence Stroll has sold his stakes in the Aston Martin F1 team, and therefore there's going to be a switch up in the Aston Martin lineup. I've seen everything from Fernando Alonso leaving / retiring to Lance Stroll losing his seat to like Checo Perez rejoining what was the former Racing Point. Like, I have seen every lineup under the sun, but it all stems from Lawrence Stroll is pulling out of the F1 business.
I don't think so. I'm trying to think of where I would like give like a number on this. I guess a 4. The only reason that I'm like not at a 5 is like because recently they've been unbelievable. They like Aston Martin has fallen off so hard. But I just foresee that team like reeling in the success and the possibility that they had earlier in the start of the year. I don't think Alonso is in the place where he does not seem to be defeated enough to be retiring right now. I think there's still like the possible promise. So anything in the terms of like the Aston Martin realm and like the shuffling around of seats and things, I don't think so. And just in terms of like the business of where Lawrence Stroll would be like selling things, if anything, I feel like it would be like next year would be like the time to be selling before regulations switch up, or like getting closer to that maybe. Like I just don't think right now would be like the time for his most bang for his buck, especially where Aston Martin is.
Yeah, this feels like selling would be selling when the stock is at its lowest of the season. I mean, pretty high overall. Like they have Honda coming in. I've always felt like Lawrence Stroll's investment in the team has been dependent on how much Lance wants to race. Like it feels like a father-son duo. I also don't normally like pay attention to Lance Stroll rumors of losing that seat, because I just know like until he decides he doesn't want to race for that team anymore, he will keep racing for that team. The thing I do buy is that there's unrest in Aston Martin as a whole. But I agree, I put it around a 4 as well. Like, would it be completely crazy if we found out that, like, Lawrence Stroll sold off his stake in the team? No. Do I think it's happening right now? Do I think that's what Albert is tweeting about? Completely distraught. No, I don't. I don't think that's what's going on here. So, I don't know. I do vote that this seems like the fastest Fernando Alonso progression that we've seen. Like, if you haven't heard, Alonso has a cyclical relationship with every new team he goes to, where he goes and he's having great results and everyone's like, he is a godsend, and then things get slightly angry and discontent, and then this week he had an issue and had to retire the car. But I really think Fernando Alonso just didn't feel like driving around at the back of the race, which is like totally fair to him, like whatever you do, you Fernando. But like things have gotten testy and angry. So, like, of this, Fernando pulling the plug on the Aston Martin experiment, if he has a better seat, could totally see that happening. But the rest of it, I don't think he's retiring.
Right. If that's like the switch around of things, I don't think he's going anywhere just yet. And honestly, if there was an unrest at Aston Martin right now, given the season they had, I would be more concerned. I would feel unrest. I do feel unrest. What happened? How did this go down? This has nothing. This can't just be from the single technical directive. Like what? So much. Like someone let me know. I need a hard knocks for Aston Martin of F1 2023.
I stand by though that I don't think this is going to happen. But Fernando Alonso to the second Red Bull seat, please. That sounds like drama I can get behind.
Oh my god, I can't even think about that right now.
Well, that will lead me into the next rumor, which is the second Red Bull seat. Here are the list of drivers I have seen attached to the second Red Bull seat. There was a denial. Well, there wasn't a denial. There was news again that Lando again turned down the second Red Bull seat, which I only put in here to say, if you have the colonists, go do it. But whatever, okay. Checo's losing it. Daniel Ricciardo's getting it. I've seen rumors this week that Charles is getting it because the amount that Red Bull posted about him this weekend, and Christian Horner stopped and spoke to Charles Leclerc more than normal, So, essentially, I'm going to group all of these rumors under second Red Bull seat, and how it's relating to Checo or Fernando or Carlos is why Albert is sad and stressed about the rumor. I know I didn't really give you a lot of concrete information to rate there, but just how you feeling?
Checo bye-bye is at a 1. Charles
happening.
At Red Bull at a 5. I think Charles will have to be dragged out of a Ferrari garage, like
kicking, screaming, crying,
throwing up. Carlos has been like this while the beer sponsor Garcia Estrella
leaving Ferrari.
Leaving Ferrari gives me heebie-jeebies still.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to. I would be shocked if either of these boys leave Ferrari in like the next 3 months, but I don't know. We will see. I do think if Checo's, my 1 for Checo leaving is Danny Rick getting the seat, but because I don't think I can't see Helmut Marko choosing Yuki for the seat. Whether
Yeah.
like that's like, you know,
He's a Honda driver. He's not a Red Bull driver.
yeah.
I
And
agree. It's a 1 for Checo. I feel like Checo's out. Whether he retires, he ends up in another seat. And I think the reason we've gotten, not just because of this tweet fiasco this week, but I think the reason we're getting so many rumors about different drivers filling the second Red Bull seat is because I honestly believe Red Bull doesn't know. I think Red Bull is doing everything they can to try to put different drivers into that seat. And I think they know they can always fall back on Daniel Ricciardo. So I think the reason we haven't gotten any announcements or anything is because Checo's out and they don't know.
Yep,
And that's why things
they
are
signed
chaotic.
3 AlphaTauri drivers.
Well, the last thing I had here I kind of touched on, which is Carlos leaving Ferrari? And you kind of touched on it. I would be stunned this year. Like, if he was leaving Ferrari this year, I would be floored.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like a right now. Like, I just don't have the same sentiment that I do about, like, Charles needing to be dragged out by security of the Ferrari garage. I just don't get that same vibe from Mr. Smooth Operator. So I could see us seeing him somewhere else before we see Charles somewhere else. But I don't think that's a hot take or a surprise from anybody. For anyone.
5. I'd still put it on a 5 for this year.
Yeah.
But I will say, all of this has opened up to me that if the only announcement we get in the coming, like in the time between now and before preseason testing, if the only change we get is an announcement that like Logan's retaining his seat, I will be floored. I'm at a 1 for there is chaos yet to happen. There's clearly chaos yet to happen.
So we have watched Sir Lewis Hamilton soft launch a non-alcoholic beverage brand over the last few weeks and months. And there was a time where we were like, oh, maybe it's music. And nope, surprise, it is non-alcoholic tequila, which agave beverage. Almave is what has been revealed to us going into the Mexico GP.
I think there's 2 things here. One is I have zero idea what this drink will taste like. I ordered it mostly because I don't understand the idea of an agave drink that's not tequila, because to me, tequila just tastes like alcohol. So how is it non-alcoholic? I don't understand. So let's start there. What is this thing going to taste like when it arrives at my doorstep, besides just being a really cool looking bottle that I'll be excited to have on my bar cart?
Yeah, the bottle's beautiful. Like, all of the branding is stunning, which, like, is no surprise. But I think agave beverages, and I think this is going to just burn. So I'm intrigued to see you get yours and for your review, and then I will decide based on that whether I will buy. Again, 1989 Taylor's version. I have only been able to spend Swiftie money this weekend, so have not been able to touch my F1 reserve money just yet. So I do want to try it. I'm wondering if maybe there'll be like certain F1 races, or like maybe there'll be like bars or something. They should do a brand activation in Vegas. Lewis Hamilton, I know you're a big fan of the pod, and LH44, all of the members of the team. So the brand activation that you're definitely going to do in Vegas for this. Can't wait to see it, right?
I agree that Vegas to me feels like the best and worst place to promote a non-alcoholic drink ever. The non-alcoholic drink space has been this like really growing market. Like people who have been paying attention to this, not only in F1 do they heavily promote like non-alcoholic beers. Now that comes from a space of regulation. Like Heineken really just wants you to buy Heineken, but they have to promote the 00 Heineken because they're not allowed to promote drinking in relation to cars going fast, because drinking and driving and all the reasons why people shouldn't do that. But even outside of F1, like I think it was Bud Light and Heineken and like all these brands have launched non-alcoholic versions. There's been a trend in people under 35 heavily they want to be able to go out with their friends and drink, but they don't actually want to consume alcohol. So like non-alcoholic spirits has been a growing market. So this is a very trendy investment that Lewis has made into this brand.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I see it, Lewis has been expanding his like own personal brand for like a very long time, and at least like observing from the outside, he's made it very clear that he's trying to make whatever his brand, the Lewis Hamilton world of branding, basically into a lifestyle brand. So like he's been doing his merch, there's been music in the past, like the different endeavors that he like dabbles into. So it's not a surprise to me that like he sees this untapped potential of a market, especially in the area of non-alcoholic beverages with the growth that it's seen. And also recently, like while Googling some of this, there's been articles of him in discussion about how he like talks openly how he's like no longer drinks because he'll drink like 1 or 2 times a year and just feel like really crappy about it and stuff like that. So my brain's like, you started working on this 2 years ago, so you started talking about this in interviews 2 years ago. So yeah. It's an area within the Lewis Hamilton LH44 like lifestyle. So you have your foundation, you have your merchandise, you have everything else that you can, it's another like check on the list of like ways that he can like pursue an area that he's passionate in while still like being Lewis Hamilton.
So I pulled some hard data, despite saying I didn't Google this before, but I was like, let me see if I can get something from like a Forbes or somewhere reputable. So this is according to Forbes, that last year in 2022, no and low alcohol beverages grew by more than 7% in volume sales across the 10 biggest global markets. So that's normally like European markets and the US markets. It's normally a very Western leaning. They don't list what the global markets are, but just so anyone listening to this knows this. And it surpassed 11 billion in market value as a vertical, and that's up from 8 billion in 2018. So just when we're saying this is like a growing vertical interest, like a lot more people are buying or choosing to buy no or low alcohol content beverages. I don't understand low alcohol content beverages. Like, look, if you're gonna drink, just drink. Like, but that's
maybe
me.
Would that be like? No, that's like low carb. I was thinking like a Michelob or like Miller Lite.
Yeah. I'm thinking it's just like a low proof. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I don't know what this Forbes article in particular is. They're not being very specific about it, but it just gives you a good scope of it. You've convinced me, though. I do think that I can now connect this to Lewis more than I mentally was. But I do think it's clear that he's passionate about this. And I just like whenever Lewis gets excited or passionate about projects. And like to the fact that there's a lot of like him growing his global brand. Like I will always be supportive of and excited when Lewis does anything that's just not connected to F1. And also we got a great meme out of it.
Oh wait, hold on, I have a cup. That's good. Have you tried it? That's good. No, it's just so casual. We knew what you were doing, Lewis.
Hey, podcast listeners. Gossip Grid here, your guide to F1's paddock elites.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Gossip Grid. A very special edition of Gossip Grid is to celebrate the last sprint race of the year. Thank goodness. I'm here to give you a sprint version of Gossip Grid. I'm going to just try to do this fast and speedy. I have a short couple of cool things just because I thought it would be fun, and I'm really excited to be done with sprint races, at least for 2023. So, starting off this past Friday, if you haven't heard me mention this already in the show, Taylor Swift released 1989 Taylor's version, and it has completely flipped my world upside down, which is absolutely no idea. Which is absolutely, like, no brand new information. Blah, blah, blah. Everyone and their mother in the F1 world was a Swiftie on Friday, and it was, like, really suspicious to see, like, who was really being, like, doing a good job and who absolutely wasn't. Last week, I called out Alfa Romeo and Coda for being fake Swifties and posers and for just throwing cowboys of VB and Joe on the cover of 1989, which made absolutely no sense. This week, they were a little bit better. They were prepping for FP1 by listening to 1989 Taylor's version with Wild the Streams playing in the background. So, fine, you did a little bit better. Alpine wished everyone happy 1989 Taylor's version day team, but you can tell that this was a scheduled post and they're absolutely clueless because they used the stolen version of style. So I'm immediately mad at Alpine. All of the points they got for the Travis Kelce jersey the week before, immediately subtracted and gone. Shout out to Mercedes for putting their drivers on the album cover and at least updating 1989 to the year that like Lewis and George were born, whatever. Minimal effort, but you didn't mess up and
They changed something. They were slightly creative.
Something, and you didn't use the wrong version of the music, which is the point of the entire thing.
Someone was there who knew enough to understand that Taylor Swift was born in 1989, and that's why the album was called that.
Thank goodness.
Mercedes admins, we see you.
Moving on, we got some updates about the Keanu Reeves unscripted documentary show filmed with Disney Plus. If you are one of the few people that don't know the entire Ross Braun story, I'm not going to tell you anything about what this show is about, and you need to watch it, because if you exist somehow, boy, I can't wait for you to watch this. So the documentary series is called Braun, the Impossible Formula One Story. All 4 episodes will drop in the UK on Disney Plus, and in the US, and I guess wherever you have Hulu. Check Hulu or Disney Plus on November 15th. That's where you will find this entire series. Incredible, one of the best stories I've ever heard in my entire life of sports. CNBC has announced a release date for an Inside the Track, the Business of Formula One documentary series. Will be airing on November 16th. There's a lot of content that week. I wonder why. Oh, Vegas is that weekend. That is why. So CNBC will be talking about the rapid growth in attendance, viewership, market value, examining different title sponsors like the MoneyGram Haas deal, and the introduction of F1 Academy this year. So I'm really excited to see this. Alex Albon is promoting skincare. Once again, there's another CeraVe ad posted today, and it is a spooky Halloween bit. It's so silly. It's so fun. Again, my favorite thing about Alex is that I love that he films these ads that just seem like they're that old school YouTube skit. Like you filmed it yourself in your bathroom, which is what it looks like he did. So he's promoting skincare. He's also just funny as heck, and more drivers listen to Alex Albon. And my last bit of Gossip Grid for this Sprint Gossip Grid this week, Las Vegas Grand Prix opening ceremonies lineup has been announced. And I need someone to tell me if any of these artists have anything in common whatsoever. Andre Day, Journey, Keith Urban, Swedish House Mafia, 30 Seconds to Mars, will.i.am, J Balvin, who was at the Mexico GP this past weekend and hung out at the Ferrari garage. But, basically, they're doing kind of what they try to do with the Super Bowl halftime show and having a little bit of something for everyone. So if you like R&B, if you like country, if you like reggaeton, you can tune in to the Las Vegas GP opening ceremonies at 10:30 p.m. Oh my god, that is so unbelievably late. So they're really trying to appeal a bunch of different people. We'll be intrigued if it sticks. I guess check it out on ESPN2. They're streaming it on YouTube, which is cool. I don't know. That seems like a kind of a hot mess. What are your thoughts?
I'm team opening ceremony. I will always be team hoopla. Period. Just hoopla. But I wanted to answer your question when you were like, if anyone can tell me what all of these have in common. The snarky answer is they all said yes to F1. The less snarky answer is I think a lot of them have residencies in Vegas, or at least long-standing relationships in Vegas. There's the J Balvin who doesn't have a Vegas residency, but he just loves F1, so I think. But I think the biggest connection is this might actually be their attempt to be like Vegas.
So I need Journey, Keith Urban, and who's the third one I want to throw in here? Yeah, J Balvin. Let's put all 3 of them on the same stage at the same time, and let's see what happens.
I just want to know who is tasked with doing the transitions between all the different acts, because that's, even if they're not on the stage at the same time, that is going to be a mission. But I agree with you, to me it feels like SNL isn't really great because SNL just wants to appeal to everyone. There's no such thing as appealing to everyone. This screamed too many cooks in the kitchen. You just needed to pick a target demographic, and they could not.
Little bit of everything.
But I stand by hoopla, chaos, driver introductions. Give me the chaos. I loved the Miami opening ceremony that they didn't repeat this year, that they only did at year 1. It was so much fun. It's Vegas. Go all out. I want to see, Showgirls, the Blue Man Group. Nothing is more Vegas than the Blue Man Group. The only thing that could feel more Vegas right now is if, the whole thing was done in front of or inside the Sphere with, U2. And give me, a Britney Spears. These are 2 big names that wouldn't say yes to F1. But my point is, go all out.
Well, the Blue Man Group and Cirque du Soleil will also be there, so you really are getting everything involved. Vegas, baby. But that is everything I have for this really sprinted through Gossip Grid.
Every week after a race weekend on our Instagram stories, we put up polls of the race weekend to get all of your thoughts on what happened this weekend. So we're going to go through all the results of the race weekend polls right now. If you didn't participate this week, it will be the Monday after the race weekend. These go up at Gridwalk Show. Participate, please. We like hearing your thoughts. So, poll number 1. Perez's weekend made me, and the options were sad, mad, welcome back to Red Bull, Danny Rick. And it seems like we don't have a lot of Checo fans in our particular audience. So if you're a Checo fan and you didn't participate, you should go let your voice be heard, because the winner at 56% was welcome back to Red Bull, Danny Rick. And we will move on, because we know how Nicole feels on that one.
Oops.
My answer was sad. It honestly really made me sad this weekend. Seeing the kids cry was a lot.
I felt sad for Checo, but I was also celebrating Danny Rick. Again, they're not mutually exclusive, but kind of they are mutually exclusive.
No, you can hold two feelings at once. Those are both allowed to coexist. All right, poll number 2. Will Lewis Hamilton pass Checo for P2 in the championship by the end of the season? Yes, no were the options, and the winner was yes at 89%. He is 20 points behind.
Let's go, Brazil.
Oh my God, it would be so close if he wasn't disqualified. All right. Grade Ferrari's Mexico GP weekend. I put this up as a poll because I personally was a little confused about how to feel about Ferrari's weekend, and I wanted you all to tell me the answer. So the options were they maximized what they could have been P2, or no thoughts left, only sadness. And the winner was they maximized what they could, 67%. 22% was the second winning one, with no thoughts left, only sadness.
Yeah. Tifo, that's the like hardcore like Tifosi answer.
No feelings left to give. But it seems good that we all kind of collectively feel like you know what, Ferrari, you were wrong, but like you did what you could. Like did you get that tire strategy right? No, but you did what you could. All right, we had 5 rookies participate in FP1 this week. So running through them, Berman did Haas, Duhan was for Alpine, Vesti was Merck, Hadjar at AlphaTauri, and poor Pourchaire at Alfa Romeo didn't even get out for a lap, so he wasn't even a part of my poll. It made the poll of 4 drivers very easy on me. So which rookie impressed you the most during FP1?
I think about Bierman, but I think I only did that just because he had the highest, like, quickest time. Like, I think I was literally like, you were not the worst.
I also picked him. He also won at 60%, and I picked him because he was the only rookie driver to outperform a typical on-the-grid driver for fastest lap. He was above Fernando Alonso. Now, not that I put a lot of stock in FP1 times, but if someone's gonna impress me, you taking your Haas and you being faster than Fernando Alonso, I'll give it to you.
That's a fun fact.
Will you be trying Lewis Hamilton's new drink? The options were yes, already ordered, yes, ordering soon, I'm undecided, and not for me. So this was pretty close across the board. The winner was yes, ordering soon at 38%. If you add that to the 12% that said they already ordered, 50% of our audience is saying yes, they want to try it. And then it's split perfectly in half at 25% apiece to I'm undecided and not for me.
Yeah, I can get that.
Generally positive vibes around the release. And last but not least, which non-Red Bull team will be the fastest in Brazil? The options were Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, and other. And for the second week in a row, Ferrari and other got 0% apiece. And the winner was 62% at Mercedes. People are feeling high about the Mercedes after Lewis's P2. But no one thinks it's Ferrari or a different team. Everyone's...
So funny. Ferrari or other. No one.
It just always makes me laugh because the randomness of some Ferrari fan listening to this right now being like, you know what, I'm going to be hopeful. I'm going to throw one on Ferrari. And everyone's like, no, it's not Ferrari.
Nothing left, just sad. I don't want another sprint race. I want to watch my qualifying on Saturday.
This is, of all the sprint races, like, Brazil has a history of at least having fun sprint races, but it ruins the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Not a fan. Predictions for Lewis Hamilton week.
Woo!
We pick the sprint and the race, so there's a lot of points on the line. I think I'm up by 3 points right now.
Yeah, you're either up by 3 or 4, I think.
I believe it's 5-8. We get 1 point for every correct prediction made. Since we write these down in advance and this won't change any of your viewpoints, I'm just telling you right now, this is not the order we normally do it, but Lewis Hamilton is my P2. I want to pick him to win the race, but I'm not that delusional. And so he is P2, again, in Brazil, home race. Let's go.
Lewis Hamilton is also my P2. I also want to pick him to win, but in my eyes, P2 is winning races right now, because that's how that goes. So yes, I'm glad you started there, because that's where I'm at with that. I haven't wavered there. Felt really good. Felt great. I
was like, we're just starting with this, not talking about anything else first. All right. We want to do sprint picks first?
So we're going to go from P2 in the race. Now we're going to jump back to our sprint.
I just wanted to start with that, and then we'll, do our normal order.
All right. This chaos. Why not? All right. So in the sprint race, who do you have as the last spot on the podium?
Mr. Lando Norris.
And I have Mr. Oscar Piastri.
Oh, we switched roles from last week.
That's so fun.
Yeah. Brazil has the same high altitude that, not as bad as Mexico, but it does have some general high altitude. I think we didn't talk at all about Lando's comeback that was self-created because of his bad qualifying. But I don't think that's going to happen 2 weeks in a row. So I think of all the drivers on the grid right now that I'm predicting to be competitive with Lewis, Lando feels like the driver to be. And spoiler alert, we don't predict it, but Lewis is also my sprint P2. Basically, it goes Max, Lewis, everyone else.
Everyone else. So then you're a P8 in the sprint.
Mr. Daniel Ricciardo.
Oh, wow. It feels weird I don't think you've ever predicted him besides last. I don't even know if you've done that.
I think we might have done that once.
Maybe one. Honestly, you predicted him as last, and I predicted him as 10th, which would probably be what happened.
Who's your P8?
I have Alex Albon in P8 for the sprint.
Oh, I hope he has another good weekend.
I know.
Talk about things we didn't talk about. I was super excited.
And then for most points in the sprint, if you are not Red Bull.
Mercedes.
McLaren.
All right, making it interesting. I feel like I pick McLaren every week. I got tired of it. I'm going with Mercedes.
I need points, so bad. So
it's getting a little too real. Some behind the scenes, by the way, Nicole is the one who brought up the idea that the stakes this time should be the ice bath, and I think she's staring it down and is getting a little
it's
nerdy.
42 degrees outside. What is the current? That was when I literally got into the car today after work. What is the temperature outside? 45 degrees. Real feel is 41. That's illegal.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about the logistics of paying this off and when we want to pay it off. I think there's a couple of options. There's obviously the episode right after Abu Dhabi, but then this also could be the big
return.
The big return. So if you have a preference on either one of us, whoever ends up in an ice bath, would you like it to be directly after the season, or would this be a fun celebration before our first predictions of 2024? If you have a preference, please let us know. Sway us either way. But moving on, back to the race. So we both have Lewis at P2. Who's your P3?
Lando Norris.
Yeah, me too.
I flipped. I don't know. I always feel like Oscar has like some special juju on like sprint days, which is why I was like, all right, I can do like him as my P3. But yeah, no, at least in terms of race and race pace, Lando's my P3.
Yeah. Oscar has shown such like possibility this year, and he's definitely had a fantastic rookie season. Where he seems to continue to fall short is in overall tire management and race pace. Like if you need to manage your tires in the race, you're going to see the gap between Lando and Oscar grow. Mm-hmm. Now that makes complete sense. That's the hardest part of being an F1 driver from people who drive these cars. Like being able to manage a Pirelli tire. Like we saw the gap between Lewis and George this past weekend be huge, and it's because Lewis could actually manage the tires in a way that George couldn't. So I say this all to say that, like, I think what you're saying makes complete sense. Like, shorter stints, where tire drop-off isn't an issue. Like, I think Oscar's going to be very competitive with Lando going forward.
Yeah, we shall see.
Who's your P10?
My P10, again, this is just, like, now funny in the order that we've done this. My P10 is Danny Rick.
Okay, mine's not. Don't worry. Mine is Esty Bestie.
Oh, yay! I was just, my brain just feels like it's been in the place where it's so nervous to, like, pick an Alpine, but, like, I want
Who knows what's going on with Alpine? Who knows what's going on with Aston Martin? Essentially, I feel, like, pretty confident that, like, Mercedes and McLaren don't seem to be completely dropping the ball right now. Red Bull is a million light years ahead. Ferrari sometimes is up there. Everyone else, who the hell knows? It's like, what is going on?
Yeah, that's going to be just really fun to see if, Alpine's able to do anything in the remainder of the season, because it's been, like, such an up and down, but, like, this past weekend seemed relatively fine. Like, it just wasn't on fire. So, I would love for Estebes to get some good points this weekend.
I would also love for Daniel Ricciardo to get some good points this season.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. All right, so here's the negative side of it. Who do you think is going to be the last to cross the checkered flag? Reminder, if they DNF, it does not count. They have to take the checkered flag. Who'd you got?
I have Valtteri Bottas.
Ooh, rough. Alfa Romeo, you think? Last week was Zhou Guanyu. So you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting bad vibes. There's also, like, a potential of, like, a wet quali on Friday, so like there's a few teams with the back and forth of like one time setup, are you going to mess it up? So my brain's going one time setup, it may rain. Kevin Magnussen had some like crazy juju. I'm saying a lot of words, so before I finish that, who do you have last to finish?
Kevin Magnussen. But my thought process was the exact same as yours, which is like, all right, I think if someone's going to get it wrong, it's going to be an Alfa Romeo or a Haas. And I don't know. There's some teams where a driver crashes, or some drivers where that driver crashes, and I feel really good. Like, oh, you're going to have a comeback, like, solid race. Maybe you won't get points, but you won't, like, crash like that again. I could see Kevin not feeling confident in the car where the suspension just failed him a week earlier, and it just like not turn out great. But I don't think he's going to DNF again. So
well, it just would be, now that I have decided against it, because this is last year where he got pole, so now suddenly he goes from like pole to DNF. So
also, yeah.
That also sounds pretty Haas. But we have the same kind of thought process. This is again the hardest thing that we predict is who's last. And the last thing to wrap up our predictions for Brazil. Most points in the race, and you're not Red Bull. What team do you have?
Mercedes.
And I still have McLaren.
Yep, we both did that same strategy where it's like one of them. Feels like it's going to be one of them.
Someone's in for a really positive weekend this weekend.
Hopefully it's me and my predictions.
Hopefully
and
it's
Sir
me.
Lewis Hamilton.
Well, I also would love for it to be Sir Lewis Hamilton. And I don't want to root against Mercedes, but like, okay, Danny Rick, P10. Thank you.
Welcome back to Yellow Sector Notes. Not the fastest walk around F1, but we will complete a full lap around the paddock, hitting every F1 garage. All right, to be honest with you all, the rumors that are swirling around F1 right now have made my ability to actually find news that I think you should all know about every team on the grid nearly impossible. So we're not going to hit every garage this week. It's the third race of a busy triple header. I just hope you all forgive me for what's going to be a very rapid-fire Yellow Sector notes of some interesting notes, but definitely not every garage. No full lap this week. The Vegas GP is still not sold out. The Spanish broadcaster Dazen extends their broadcast partnership with F1 through 2026. Lewis Hamilton set the record for podiums in Formula One with 197 this past weekend, breaking Lewis Hamilton's record of 196. Nico Hülkenberg celebrated his 200th Grand Prix start at the Mexico GP this past weekend, and Mercedes announced that they reduced emissions year over year by 67% with their use of biofuel during the European leg of the F1 season, as, by the way, a reminder that all the F1 teams are ramping up to being completely carbon neutral in the next coming seasons. And that is your very, very quick and short grid walk for November 2nd, 2023. I read too many things at once. Let me start again. That is the grid walk for November 2nd, 2023 completed. How is my sector time today, Nicole?
Definitely so much faster than we will find out what Will and Albert were like actually tweeting about.
I don't think we'll ever know. I think they were toying with us.
I don't think we'll ever really know. There's nothing. They're just snickering like, hee, there's nothing. Thank you to voiceover man, Alex Albon's content team, and to our four-legged executive producers. If you are watching on YouTube, subscribe, like the video, leave us a comment. What are your thoughts on all of the rumors going on? Which ones do you think are true? Which ones do you think are like definitely 100% totally not true? And what are ones that you heard of that we didn't get to talk about? If you are an audio listener, don't forget to turn on auto downloads. Like Briana said at the start of the episode, this is so important. And if you're listening to me yammer talking about this now, then you really care about us and you care about our happiness. So turn on auto downloads, rate and review the pod, leave us a comment, leave us a review. What do you like about this show? What would you like to see us talk about? What would you like to see us try out? All of these things really, really help us when we're making the show and really help other people find the podcast. Join us for daily grid walks on all social media platforms. You can find us at Gridwalk Show on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Threads. We will be back to join the Formula One. Wow. I was doing so well. We will be back to join the Formula One grid every Thursday, and we sincerely hope you join us. Oh, today just, today felt like a day.
Yeah.
That we record the podcast.
Today felt like more rumors than facts.
Yep, today felt like a grid rumor mill and not a grid walk.